All right. Hello, everybody. We are going to talk a little bit today about our ICTR LHS project for systems engineer for workflow optimization on patient flow through the ED. We did plan on, I guess we should get some very brief introductions. I'm Brian Patterson. I'm one of the emergency physicians and researchers, and I work on the medical informatics team at AI.
My name is Sabrina Adline. I'm a program director in IS for the UW Health Side.
I'm Hannah Barton. I'm a scientist in Department of Emergency Medicine.
Because we presented this project a few times to members of this audience, we were hoping to spend most of the time on questions. So I'm going to go through real quick for those of you who aren't very familiar with the project in terms of what we did and how the year 2 demonstration project worked. So the genesis of this project was that we have difficulty placing patients from the emergency department in the right hospital bed for these patients. We have patients who are in the emergency department who can go to any one of 3 hospitals, and there are a lot of system consequences and patient consequences for getting somebody into the wrong spot. At the same point in time, we can't afford to sit around and wait forever to find the right bed for a patient because it clogs up the emergency department and stops other patients from getting it. And one of the operational goals that we had before we attracted the ICTR support was to use some analytics to help us with this problem. And very specifically, the nidus of this project was to take a model that predicted which patients, when they hit the door, were going to be admitted from the emergency department, so we could get a little bit of a jump on the decision of, hey, how many beds are we going to need in which hospitals to accommodate these patients? Now, as we started this operational project, we were able to partner with ICTR and get LHS project support for this. And that provided a lot of resources for us. And critically, it also supported, as a human factors engineer, to help us with identifying the workflow considerations for integrating this tool. And that led the project in a whole different direction, which was really interesting. So the model worked. The model was very good at predicting it. But one of the things that we found through a lot of investigation was that we didn't really have the place to use the model's input to actually improve care at UW Health without a significant redesign of our workflows. And that's kicked off a lot of ongoing operational work in patient throughput, where we're figuring out how we can redesign the system in such a way that we can use advanced analytics to actually make things run better. So what we found was that the process that this thing would support is much more complex than people, including those of us who live this and who work in it every day, realized, and that we didn't have standards for admitting patients that needed to be evolved and brought across the organization. Sabrina, Anna, and others are working on a playbook that's being refined throughout the organization around these key topics in capacity management. This is spun off a really large organization-level project to improve throughput and to work on capacity management, and then refine guidelines so it's very clear who has decision rights on which patients go where, and then we can get the analytics to those folks so that they can make decisions with the most evidence. And furthermore, we've had the ability to do some feedback with our partners at Epic for how their tools out of the box can support this kind of work. And then this project has been successful not just for UW Health, but it's created a lot of generalized knowledge as well. It has been very productive on the research side of this, and this has, as we joked, like midway through the project, it was like, oh, we thought this was like a small project, then we thought it was a big project, and then we realized it was a career, and then possibly a couple careers in terms of this work of the people who help move patients through hospitals has never really been studied systemically, and it's enormously important to how patients move through the system and to patient-oriented outcomes. And like a lot of things in healthcare, we have like a strong focus on like, we're going to study what the doctors and nurses do, and that's what's like important to how these outcomes come. And we really dig in. We see that the hospital's a ridiculously complex socio-technical system that everybody who's working in any capacity is really having a great effect on patient outcomes. And we just need to look into supporting everyone's work and making sure it actually functions as a system for the best efficiency and outcomes. So this is just a survey list of all the stuff Hannah's knocked out from this project, but they've been able to present this at various national conferences, especially in the human factors space. So that's my brief introduction. Hopefully not the third time any of you have heard it. But now we'll take up questions as they come up.
So, one of the things that they were kind of interested in is knowing why this project was selected as a priority for implementation, understanding that, you're really engaged in the research, the analysis part of it, as you launch this project.
Yes, sure. Yeah, so I'm sure you all are aware that there's an access problem for our healthcare system. They've experienced it yourself and your families. So while the avian team got the buzzwords, we also are tackling perhaps an indefinite problem around access. And so I think anything that even helps move that a little bit is of great interest. It also happened to be aligning sort of timing wise right along the time that we were thinking as a system of what our new strategic playbook was going to look like, and knowing that access was going to be a big cornerstone of that. I think all of that really aligned to say that this was something that was worth investing in. The other side, maybe less strategic and more change people, organizational side of it, was the health system moved to a centralized patient placement team like just months before this started. And so they were also wrestling with the transition from a decentralized system of folks with really specialized knowledge in their individual hospitals to saying, what does it look like to do it as a system? And having all kinds of challenges. And I think that the expertise that Hannah brought and even the language and how do you think about this also hit a really great time for the health system as they were challenged with that.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple more words on that because I think it's not necessarily that it contributed to the strategic choice of the project, but again, I think the timing of that transition from having the nurses or the house supervisors within each hospital doing the placements to that centralized access team was not only a big organizational change, but is very indicative of the problem we're pointing to, which is we're no longer operating as one hospital. We're operating as a health system with multiple hospitals with specialized competencies where we need to be strategic about our use of those resources. And that transition, I think, was made the stakeholders, especially the folks in the access center, ready partners. They were what can I tell you? How can I help you? I'm I want to help you, right? And so it was this synergy. I think Joel said this, right? It's not only buy-in, not only I don't remember the other word, but resonance, right? There's a certain resonance, this matters. Doing this is of value to them. So
It sounds like you brought some interesting strategies in terms of your research to this entire enterprise. And I'm wondering, perhaps you could speak a little bit more, Hannah, about how you reconciled the research and the operational pieces of this. Obviously, change management was a huge both facilitator and barrier in some ways. That
I don't know if this is the right answer, but I think it was valuable for me to situate myself as sort of a consultant and to distance myself a little bit from the outcome of the project and to think about, what resources, both again, the research outputs that would be useful to me and useful to other health systems and other people that I care to influence, right? There's real expertise, there's real knowledge that we're learning here. So producing those outputs, but then producing operational outputs that the our stakeholders can leverage, right? So I don't know if someone clicks back to the slide with that big messy diagram, I think that was pretty eye-opening for people to see, right? It was wait, this is the system I'm inside of, and providing those things again, where it's I don't have to have the right solution or what you're going to do with this information, but I'm going to give you the resources to then go back into that, organizational environment and, bring this up with the leaders who are pushing in the front of the, IS, but then also on the operations. And then, as we were speaking to here, that there's a lot that had to do with how people defined and thought of their roles, right? So The short answer is it's very hard. And then the longer answer is that I found it really valuable to kind of situate myself as a consultant and partner with the operational folks.
So one of the things that you mentioned that I'm really intrigued by is that this project kicked things up very quickly into a multi-institution system level project. Can you share a little bit about what impacts that you anticipated from this project and whether or not they aligned with what you expected and what was unexpected about that?
I could start. I think, like a lot of these projects, they grow over the course of the project. I think we initially conceptualized this as a pretty quick hitting. We're going to evaluate the impact of adding one analytic model to a system. And what we found was the system was a lot more complex than we thought, and that we needed to both understand it better and change the system. So I would say certainly unexpected at the beginning. Like this was definitely not where we saw this going, but really speaks to the value of bringing a large multidisciplinary team. Because we did, kind of in terms of who was doing what, the makeup of the team, like we really saw this as very quantitative in the beginning, and that it became much more of like an organizational structure piece. Luckily, we had Anna involved, who's an expert in that type of work, but it was one of the really nice things about this mechanism was it allowed us to add that type of academic expertise to an operational project that was already going to happen one way or the other.
Yeah. I think just to add maybe two things. So having Hannah in a space for sure, because as I came to understand what their expertise were, I had the exact problem that they could solve sort of sitting right there. And so it was a really nice handover. I would also say the impact for the work has had a really long ripple effect. The way that these teams are thinking about their roles, their org chart. We now have a strategic initiative that has sort of cascaded projects that directly tie into some of this work. It has enabled us to move quicker on other decision support tools like dashboards in order to get us to a place where we can then come back to that analytics model and actually have it somewhere where people are using it. And so I think to Joel's point about how systems go like fast and slow, I think we had some really good launch right up front, lots of good work. And then it's taken a little bit for that to like absorb into the system and have those ripple effects go through. And now I think we're really primed for another round.
Maybe I'll just add, I think Brian nodded at this, but like the recognition that, whatever we implement, we're going to need to think more strategically at the outset about where that input is going to go back into the system, what decision it's actually going to influence. And so, I think but one of the findings, one of the learnings from this learning health system is really valuable for all the informatics solutions we're implementing, but particularly AI, where we seem to just give AI this this value as it must be giving us something useful, right? We must be able to do something with this information. And again, what we found here was that no one was suited to take that information and turn it into an actionable, it was influencing a decision. It didn't fit in how people thought about how they were doing placement. And so, at the outset, when a vendor or when, someone in the health system is like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea, let's do this. The first questions we need to ask are what is the problem it's solving? What decision is it going to impact? It's not, well, how much do people trust it? It's not some of the questions that people get really hung up on. It's more practical than that, which again is, people are speaking to the value of my expertise. And I'll just say what that is human factors engineering, which is really based in studying how people work, which is pragmatic. It's people are influenced by the goals, right? And what are their goals? Well, they're influenced by what's going to give them money, what's going to be efficient, right? And as much as we care about intellectually the safety of a patient, or all of our patients. What matters is the patient in front of us, right? And so everyone in the system, if you go back to that image, if it's possible, everybody has the individual expertise and thinks their part of the system is the most important part. And that's fine if we can integrate that at a level and someone above that has the expertise to integrate it, right? To say that actually the system, all these subsystems can't be optimized. Because if they're optimized, then the system overall isn't.
So we have time for one last question. And it's interesting, this project has generated so much already of value. The ROI is really, the return on investment is super high already. But I wonder if you could address the question of whether and how this project could be made sustainable from the perspective of the UW Health system.
Well, I think one of the success stories here is that I think we've proven the value of doing this type of analysis to the point where we haven't just like let Hannah drop back into the academic world after the project ended, but they are actually working with the applied data science team in a continuing effort to provide input into just these current questions of how we use, how we can do more human factors evaluation of our analytic support and other AI initiatives as well.
That's wonderful. We're all happy to know you'll be sticking around and helping. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much. Any last thoughts before we transition to our next speaker?
I think I would just say, I think one of the reasons this project was successful, one thing we talk about a lot is the alignment of incentives. And I think this project naturally worked pretty well in that this was a problem that the health system knew they needed to tackle, and they didn't know exactly how to tackle it. It's the perfect place to bring in someone with academic expertise to come in and help. And this is also a problem that's very interesting to a human factors engineer. And I think knowing that and getting the project set up, it was already primed for success, whichever direction it went. And I think that was one of the great values of the mechanism, was getting people together and getting all the goals clearly stated in the analysis.
Yeah, makes sense. Wonderful. Thank you all three.